This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer? Experts in the Wire, Episode 6. Jen Slegg. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Episode 6 of Experts on the Wire. This is where we share insights from the smartest minds online, all about digital marketing, SEO, growth hacking, analytics, you name it. We're going to try to eventually get to all of that and cover it here on the show. I know a lot of the beginning episodes have been about SEO thus far. That's kind of the industry I'm in, so that's what we've been covering. However, there's a lot to look forward to in terms of PR, growth hacking, analytics, content marketing. So I'm very excited as these episodes roll out. It's been really interesting because I actually pre-record these episodes, like the one you're hearing today with Jennifer Slegg. We did this interview, I want to say about 3 weeks ago. And so that was before even the first episode had been launched. So it's cool to do these intros though, just before the day before they come out, because I've had a little bit of feedback. And I really appreciate everyone that's been sharing the episodes on Twitter and listening and subscribing in iTunes. I'm very happy to say we have just shy of 800 total downloads or listens thus far in the in my podcast analytics, which is definitely very humbling. And also I'm just really excited to see that people have commented and said that they've been finding value out of this podcast so far. So as always, I'm open to recommendations, thoughts, feedback that you might have. Shout out to Guy, who left a review in the iTunes store just the other day. Our second review. I really appreciate that, Guy, so thank you. I also want to announce our winner of the hashtag contest from last week, episodes 4 with Ross Simmons, and his name is Robert Chisholm. You have won the prize that Ross Simmons is awarding, so I'm going to connect with you on Twitter and connect you with Ross over there, so thank you for doing that. Definitely go back and listen to episode 5 with Phil Rozek, who I'm sorry, I butchered your name, I think, on the actual episode last week, Phil, but it's Phil Rozek of Local Visibility System. That episode was just phenomenal, packed with local SEO information. So definitely go back and listen to that. I've gotten some great feedback from that. Today's show features Jen Slegg from the SEM Post. This episode goes behind the scenes about how she runs the SEM Post, which I think a lot of you will find very fascinating. So this is one of the top SEO industry publications, in my opinion, covering news and kind of SEO strategies and updating people on what's going on with Google. And she talks about her criteria for taking guest posts, as well as, I have it in my notes here, as well as her thoughts on what makes a high quality site and how she finds story ideas to cover about Google on the SEM Post. Next episode on Wednesday of next week is going to be Shah Menz of a tool called, if I'm saying it right, Remove. I know it has kind of a funky spelling without like the vowels in it, but this episode really blew me away. She really knows her stuff when it comes to link removal and link-based penalties. So anyone just kind of interested in what's been going on in that world should definitely tune in for episode 7 next week with Shah Menz. So again, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. This has been so much fun so far now that we've had the show launched and been getting some feedback. So I appreciate that. Now, we're now in episode 6, by the way. So I've said all along, episodes like 7 through 10 is where I'm definitely going to be a little more comfortable kind of asking for reviews, because I understand that people probably want to have an idea of what the show is going to be all about and kind of assess the consistency and the value that you're going to get from that. But I urge you, if you've listened to a few episodes and enjoyed it and you want us to keep delivering really great episodes, a review in iTunes really helps, because it's going to help spread the show beyond just the circle of people that I know or second degree away from the people that I know. So a review in iTunes helps us show up better in searches within iTunes and in the marketing section in iTunes. And, the number I hear is like, once you get above 5 reviews, you're kind of in, even playing field with some of the other podcasts. And we're at 2 right now. So I would love a few more reviews, and I'll shout out to people that are kind enough to leave a review for us in iTunes. So without any further ado, let's get to episode 6 and my conversation with Jen Slegg. Jen, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I am excellent. I want to dive right in and just give some listeners some context. So this show is all about getting experts like yourself and providing value to anybody interested in digital marketing, whether you are a marketer doing SEO or doing PR or doing content, or you're a business owner, startup founder, entrepreneur. So the audience is running the whole gamut here in terms of people that are getting value from the show. And so what I want to do is just have you talk a little bit about your background to set the context for kind of where you came from and how you ended up running the SEM Post. So give us a quick background.
My initial background is actually journalism. That's what I did in my life before I discovered the world of SEO, I guess you could say. Mm-hmm. I started SEO back in like 98 or 99. So I'm definitely one of the older people in the industry as far as like length of experience goes. Way back in the day, I stumbled across Webmaster World and went to my very first PubCon, I think in like 2001 or 2002, many, many years ago, one of the first ones they did. And it just kind of snowballed from there.
So when you say you had a background in journalism, is that what you went to school for?
Yes. I was doing writing locally, and I was doing some online writing as well at the time. Mm-hmm. I haven't actually investigated any of those publications, but I'm fairly certain if they were online in like the late 90s, they probably aren't around anymore.
And what sort of piqued your curiosity about getting into SEO?
Actually, one of my journalism classes, we had to do a website, and that kind of got my interest into the whole aspect of SEO, how to promote it properly, because, I mean, back at the time, there was very little online. There were no books. Back when I actually learned how to HTML code initially, we had to do it in TextPad. Or I think TextPad wasn't even out yet. I think it was a Notepad. So there weren't even any like front page that was like the gold standard for the mid 90s area. It wasn't even out yet. So I'm one of those people that if I had to, I could hand code. I don't enjoy it, but I could.
I hear you on that. And this was pre-Google, correct?
Oh, definitely pre-Google.
So what were some of the search engines that you would have been looking at those days?
Oh, there would have been like Alta Vista. There was WebCrawler. I remember voting on the logo for WebCrawler. Must have been mid-90s, sometime around there. I'm not even sure if Yahoo was around, but we all used Netscape. Netscape was the browser to use back then.
Yes, it was. I remember Netscape. And so as you got into SEO, what was your main focus with that? Were you writing about SEO at that time, or did you have clients, or what was your main activity at that time?
I was doing it for personal sites when I first got into it, as well as helping friends who were kind of dabbling in their own business sites as well. You know, if they were an early adopter of making an online presence for their business. And I kind of ran the whole gamut. I mean, back then, everybody was a jack of all trades because you couldn't hire people back then to do this kind of stuff. So, you know, I remember bidding on Overture for the penny clicks. That was amazing. If you got in on that, that was just like, whoa, this is awesome. Wow. And obviously, well before AdWords existed.
And when you say penny clicks, were these clicks that cost 1 cent, literally?
Yes, literally. Like just about, if they were expensive keywords, they'd be like 10 cents a keyword.
Oh, wow.
It was pretty amazing.
It's funny to hear expensive and 10 cents for a keyword in the same sentence now.
Yeah.
That is funny. So let's fast forward a bit through to up until, I think about 2014, was it you started the SEM Post?
Yes, it was.
And so what was the inspiration for that? Were you doing something prior to that and you wanted to make a change, or what? Did you see a gap in the SEO industry?
I had been writing under contract as like an independent contractor for Search Engine Watch for, I want to say a year, maybe a little bit longer. I'd have to actually go back and look and see how long it was. Mm-hmm. And so I was their main news writer. So basically I was writing a lot of the same kind of stories as what we see at the SEM Post. It was a little bit different because things were much more delayed. So it was, you know, now I can, if there's something breaking and I find out 5 minutes ago, I can publish it now. Whereas before it had to go through a process and it had to be during business hours. And so there's definitely more constraints from that perspective as well, which was a little bit limiting. And so
did you find yourself, you really wanted to, like when a story broke, you really wanted to write about it right away?
Oh, definitely. A lot of times I'd have it all written right away, and then, you'd have to, it was the weekend, so you couldn't publish it. So I definitely do like the fact that I can publish things whenever I want.
That's certainly an advantage. So you've started the SEM Post, and one thing that I want to point out to the people listening, if you're not familiar with the SEM Post, even if SEO is not your core thing, definitely go check it out, because from my personal perspective, you've done a great job in the last few years of kind of standing out in the SEO industry, even with existing publications being out there already. And I don't have to name all of them, but there's a lot of other publications, some reporting on news, some doing helpful articles. And one thing I wanted to get into a little bit was, it sounds like this is a passion of yours, but at the same time, you've been able to stand out being relatively one of the newer sites in this sort of niche. Are there any specific things that you did consciously to do that?
I wouldn't say I did consciously, but more just how I do things. I often would reach out to Google to get quotes from Google on various stories, and the PR department there has been pretty good on getting back to me when I've had questions. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the PR department reaches out to me on stories. I've published something, they're like, hey, we would like to share some quotes with you. I'm like, yeah, sure. So that part's been good. I also try to draw on like some background, because I've been in the industry so long that, if I write a story about PageRank, I can talk about, back in the day, or, from that kind of perspective as well. Whereas a lot of publications are more like, this is the news, this is what happened. And they don't talk about why it's important or how it will impact SEOs or PPC people. And I think that is part that's kind of set me apart, that people enjoy reading. They can get the facts anywhere, but they like to get the analysis behind why it's important, or why they should care, or why they should freak out.
Because you have the actual background of doing SEO in the trenches.
Yes.
You can write about it from that standpoint. That absolutely makes sense. One piece I want to talk about in particular that I think exemplifies this is you wrote about Google's quality raters guidelines.
Yes.
It was the version that was leaked, and then they finally kind of gave in, and they publicly
released it. Yeah, a few days later.
I want to talk about that piece, because that's one that exemplifies, I think, your quality analysis and writing and distillation of the information that's in that guide. So we're going to link to it in the show notes so people can go check it out. But give us an idea, like, about how long did it take to read through it, come up with your analysis, and write your article about that?
From the time I had it till the time I published it, I bet you it was at least a month, because I got the guidelines and I printed out all 160 pages, and I went over them with a fine-tooth comb to see what changed. And because this rewrite was significantly different from the previous one, which was also a significant rewrite. So there was a lot of comparing between the old version and the new version. I had notes all over my copy of it, things that I noticed were different, things that I thought were really key and important for people to pay attention to. And then once I had all those notes, I actually had to put it into some sort of cohesive, format so that people could actually read it and understand it, rather than, all my scribbled notes that I wrote and highlighted bits on my copy I printed out. So it did take quite a bit of time to do it all. It definitely wasn't one of those things I found on Tuesday and published on Wednesday.
Was this a month full time, or a month just calendar wise?
A month, probably calendar wise. I'd have to actually go back and look at my notes. But it happened to be the time when I was traveling for PubCon. I was going down to Dallas for State of Search, which was actually where I was when I ended up publishing the article. And so I even lugged I lugged the binder with those notes on the airplane so that I could go through it again and make sure that I didn't miss anything important.
And you were writing other articles in the meantime as well, right? I mean, this is the only thing. So I think Correct. One of the takeaways I want the listeners to take from this is that good content and good analysis takes time. Like, you still hear a lot of people out there thinking that they're just going to write 800 words and hit publish, and it's going to do something, or it's going to matter.
Yeah, that's very similar to when I wrote a Panda article that I released earlier this year. That was the same kind of thing. It took even more research than the quality raters guidelines simply because I went through the archives of all John Mueller's old Hangouts, all sorts of threads on the official Google forums where Googlers had commented, went through tweets and posts and and just finding all the places where Google had officially said things related to Panda and quality content on the record, so that everything I was presenting in the article was stuff that Google had said on the record, whereas so much stuff written about Panda was written, oh, I think, and there was a lot of misinformation in a lot of those other articles that I was able to clear up, I think, with the one I did. And I got lots of quotes from Google on that as well, which was nice.
Excellent. So just to circle back a little bit and kind of go a little high level again for a second. So is the SEM Post, is that your full-time thing? You run the site, that's all you do now, or do you have other side projects?
I do have other side projects as well. It's just not all my time, and it can totally vary. Like there's some weeks where there's just tons of stuff happening there, or there's a conference going on, or some Googler has been very vocal on something, and that ends up sucking pretty much all of my time. And then there's other times where, there's times when I'm at a conference and instead of going out to the bar, I'm sitting in my room, my hotel room, writing up stories because of stuff that's happened during the day at the conference and stuff. So that's not unusual too.
Are your other projects, are they writing as well? Are they consulting or?
Both. I do a lot of writing though as well.
You do a lot of mix. So the SEM Post, it's obviously something that's, good for business, but this is obviously something you're passionate about. So I want to ask sort of an open-ended question. Why do you do it?
It's funny. Someone asked me this last week as well. And the main reason is I love the industry and I love to write. And so it's kind of like the perfect marriage of things that I love. So I'm really fortunate. I'm not like, if I hated the stuff I was writing about, it would be a pain. And I probably wouldn't push out as much content as I do. And it's just something I'm passionate about. So that's why I do it.
What is it about the SEO industry in particular that you love so much?
I don't know. I've ever thought about it from that perspective. Obviously, there's a lot of great people in the industry, a lot of great companies. And companies are always doing interesting things that make newsworthy things to write about, which is good. I'm not sure. I think it's just everything. Like, it's just the overall industry, really.
I agree about the people. I mean, 6 or 7 years ago, when I started getting more kind of connected and involved in the industry, that was definitely an element of it for me that, compared to other industries, that really drew me in as well, was the people. Everyone is generally so, for the most part, kind and helpful and encouraging, and that was a nice element to it. You mentioned a few minutes ago that eventually Google PR started coming to you with information. How long did that take, and what sort of trust needs to be developed, I guess, to get that to happen?
So I'm not exactly sure when it happened. It doesn't happen very often because oftentimes it's not really necessary for a story overall to have Google saying, yes, we agree, or yes, confirmed, because sometimes their comments aren't all that enlightening. But other times, like for example, I broke the story about the AdWords making it permanent where there's 4 ads at the top and none on the sidebar. And I was actually at a non-industry conference at the time, and I wrote the article and then went down to the conference hall when I got an email from one of my PR contacts, and they're like, hey, we'd love to comment on the record. Would you be able to update this right away? And I'm like, yeah. And so literally I'm in this conference updating on my iPhone the story to include quotes from them.
That's funny. What do they expect you to say? No thanks.
Yeah.
I don't want exclusive information.
Yeah, I mean, maybe some people do, and they think they're too good for it. I don't know. But I always think stories are benefited when you have Google comment on the record about any kind of story, no matter what it is.
Absolutely. So what are some places that you look to or keep an eye on for stories other than Google sending them to you?
So a lot of times, like I notice search features, like things, different colored stars, or the fact they're doing this thing in the search results, whereas before they did this thing. And a lot of it is, I've just been super lucky. Either I'm super observant or I just fluke and get a ton of these tests. I mean, they've said publicly that it's very rare that you will ever do a test where you're not going to see them testing something. And you can have, John Mueller, I think, has said you can have up to 30 different tests running at a time. But some of them are pretty obscure. Like last week at SMX, one of the Googlers commented that they recently tested 41 different shades of blue in the search results. Wow. Now, that to me seems like overkill. And, I made a joke that me and Barry Schwartz, we need to up our game because we weren't noticing the fact that they were testing these 41 different shades. But it really goes to show you just how far they do their testing to make sure that they're giving the perfect user experience. And so I've just kind of been really lucky that I just tend to zero in on these things that they're testing. And I periodically go and do Bing searches and Yahoo searches for the exact same thing because they do testing as well.
I think the last time I went to yahoo.com was probably 2004. I don't remember. Well,
that was like when I did the PageRank story yesterday. I was like dusting off my Internet Explorer and, going around. I'm visiting my parents right now and checking all their computers and dusting off they probably use Internet Explorer a lot more than I ever would, but it was kind of like, oh, Internet Explorer.
So you just mentioned three things I want to just kind of go into separately just for a moment. One is you mentioned John Mueller, and some of the people listening might not be familiar with the names of the current Googlers that are involved with search quality. So can you just do a quick rundown of who are the top, 3 to 5 people in Google search quality or Google webmasters we should be paying attention to?
Okay, so John Mueller is a webmaster trends analyst. He is, very active. He does the webmaster office hours, which are hangouts, basically. He does probably 3 every couple of weeks. And basically, they're a time when any webmaster can join the hangout and ask any kind of question they want about SEO or search or their website. And he does his best to answer them if he can. So I've actually gotten a lot of little tidbits from those office hours because he'll make little comments. And it's stuff that they wouldn't necessarily be writing a blog post about, but they're interesting nonetheless. So as far as people wanting input from Google, it's a really good way if you have quick questions. You can also submit questions and then watch the video later to see if your question's answered. Mm-hmm. The only downfall to that is depending on what time zone you're in. They usually happen for me at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Right.
He does try to do at least 1 or 2 a month that's kind of more US friendly, which means like 7 a.m. my time, which is Pacific time. But they're definitely, if you have some sort of serious problem you're running into, those are really good to go to. Gary Ish is another one who goes to many conferences, many webmaster related conferences. He was at SMX last week. He's done State of Search and PubCon, and he often does various
he tweets
search
a lot.
Quality type thing. He also does tweet a lot, and both John and Gary are pretty good about trying to answer some of the questions they get on Twitter.
Gary has almost always replied to me on Twitter or Google+.
Yeah, they're pretty good about responding. I mean, that's their job. They want to be able to reach out to webmasters and help them. And, they're out there to make things better for webmasters, really. Mm-hmm. There's also there's 2 other webmaster trend analysts, Zainab and Maria, and they're both active as well. Maria just finally started using her Twitter account again. It's like MARRRR, I think. So if you aren't following her yet, you probably should.
We'll find her in the show notes.
And Zainab is like Mrs. Z or something.
Yep.
Her
French,
Twitter
right?
handle. Yes.
Yep.
So she actually does a lot of tweets in French, which makes me dust off I used to be fluent in French, but I haven't practiced enough lately. So I'll try to translate her tweets, and usually can do a slightly better job than Google Translate can. Yep. But definitely puts my French skills to work when she does some tweets. And sometimes she does have some rather interesting tweets that are worth talking about if you can understand French.
So for all the people listening, Jen just named 4 or 5 great people to be aware of and to follow. So when you hear their names or follow them in Twitter, they're the ones that are sharing at least what they can share about Google updates and algorithm changes. What happened to Matt Cutts?
He's been on leave for a year and a half, 2 years, coming up on 2 years, I think, in June now.
Yes, and this, of course, I know I'm kind of feeding the audience here. So do you have any suspicion or prediction as to whether he'll come back and be a part of Google search? Or?
Well, he did show up at the Google Dance last week, so he put in an appearance there, and everyone was taking pictures with him and wanting to chat with him, and he didn't say anything publicly about what his future plans are, though, so... But last I checked, his bio still says he's head of web spam on leave.
Yeah, and this was originally a 3 or 6 month leave, and then it turned into a year, and then now it's been over 2 years, I think you said.
At least a year and a half. It'll be 2 years coming up soon.
2 years coming up.
But, I mean, he's always been so passionate about Google. Like, he's tweeting stuff about Google. He was tweeting last night about the Go tournament that was going against RankBrain, like the brain algorithm that Google has. And that, so he's still very passionate about Google. So I think people would be very shocked if he went on to do something outside of Google, even if it's not web spam.
So let's circle back to testing, which you also brought up a little while ago. And I want to talk a little bit more about that. So Google, in their culture, they're very obsessive with testing. Am I right about that?
Yes.
And so can you give us a little idea about the types of things Google will be testing in search results?
There's all sorts of things. Like featured snippets was originally something we saw pop up as a test. Same with the the people also asked boxes that show up. Obviously, we keep seeing stars change. We've seen stars come. We've seen stars go. Authorship was another thing that finally bit the bucket and is no longer.
And when they test, do you have a sense of what they're testing against? What metrics?
I think they're just testing whatever their standard iteration of the Google search results is versus how they could make it better. So they're obviously going to be looking at things like CTR rates, like how are people engaging with the search results. Last week at SMX, they made a comment that they did a test where they swapped position number 2 and position number 4 search results to see what would happen. And it turned out way more people clicked position number 1 because there was a marked degrading, I guess, in the quality from number 4 from the number 2 result, which was kind of interesting.
Oh, so let me restate that. So because the number 2 result was lower in quality, it made the number 1 result look even better.
Yes, and that was simply all they did was switch the position 4 result in the position 2. So it really shows you how the quality is so important for those top search results as well, and why people should really be doing everything they can to increase the quality of their sites.
Absolutely. So let's talk about that part of it for a second. So it's kind of a vague statement, especially when it comes from Google, when they say, make a quality website and quality content. Can we break that down a little bit more? Let's say we're talking about maybe blogging or blog articles or informational types of content. What can people do to make it higher quality, but more specifically than just saying make it high quality?
So it's kind of really one of those interesting things. Like, I can look at a page and say, oh, that's good quality, or oh, that's crap. But a lot of webmasters think that their quality, like their site is like the best site that's ever existed, and they have this skewed vision of how awesome their website is.
It's like people talking about their babies. Exactly.
No one wants to say their baby is the ugly one, right?
Right.
It's and so you really need to think about how it's perceived by others, not just how good you think it is, but how others perceive it. Something John Mueller has said multiple times, and something he said again just in the last Webmaster Hangout, is how you need to, if you think your site has a quality issue, have someone unconnected with the site come and sit next to you and go through the site and get their honest impressions on how good or how bad they think the website is. And a lot of times your eyes will be opened pretty quickly about the quality of your website. And there's been lots of things like people will say, oh, to be quality content, you have to have, X number of words on the page. But on my Panda article, that's one of the things I refuted. And there's some great content out there that has less than 100 words on the page. So it all depends on if you're meeting the expectations of the user when they click on your site. Are you answering the question that they give? Are you just providing a lot of fluff? Or are you not even answering what they're asking at all?
So
it's really,
it's in the eye of the user using your content.
Exactly. It's not even in the eyes of Google. It's on how it's perceived by someone who is searching for how to hard-boil an egg. They click on your site and how well you give them that answer.
Makes total sense. And so Google is trying to look at what users perceive as higher quality content.
Yes. And so obviously their algorithms have been pretty good about figuring out what's good and what's not so good. Like even if you go to the Webmaster Help Forums, which also has a lot of Googlers posting there as well. But if you go there and you see people complaining about, oh, I've got a thin content penalty or manual action, and I don't know why, my site's awesome. And you go and you look at it and it's clearly spun content, or they've taken an English article and translated it to German and then translated it back again and popped that up online. Like there's so many things that Google is getting really good at being able to determine. And I mean, I'm sure there's some cases where people are getting caught because they're trying to do an English site, but their English is quite horrendous. Like I would never go and put out a big, long French article because I know my French is no longer good enough that I'd be able to push out anything that is quality unless I had someone editing it. And so, I mean, there's definitely some sites where they just don't understand English well enough and they think, oh, English is a big market. There's lots of money. That's why I want to be there. But it also goes to show you that paying to have an editor go through your content could be a really good thing as well.
I'm glad you said the word editor, because that gave me a perfect segue into a question that I really wanted to ask. And we're going to circle away from Google stuff just for a moment. So the SEM Post, you have a lot of contributors on the site. And this might be helpful for people that do take guest contributions, or they're considering of doing that on their own website. How do you go about selecting who contributes content to the SEM Post?
When I initially started, I reached out to a handful of people and basically said, I'm starting this site. Would you be interested in doing it? I don't have editor guidelines for the writers. I basically say, don't be stupid. you know what kind of links you can link to and what kind you can't. And I mean, I've had a few writers try to slip stuff through, but I'm just absolutely like ironclad when it comes through to what kind of sites people can link to. And if it doesn't pass the sniff test, it doesn't get a link. Sure. And so I'm very careful in that perspective.
So this was invite only at the beginning. Did you have any specific criteria that you really looked for?
I was looking for people that either had a lot of interesting things to say, or leaders in the industry, or people that I enjoyed their perspective. Like there's some writers that aren't quite as well known that are on my site, but they have interesting things to say, I feel. And there's some writers that only pop up, every few months or even every 6 months, because they do what we call state of the industry columns, where they take on some aspect of the industry that people are having an issue with or that is problematic. And those columns do really well. They don't happen very often, but they're really good and interesting insight into things that are happening in the industry. And so I have quite a few writers that do those, but again, they only pop up when there's something worth writing about.
That sounds like me as a writer. It's very infrequent. One thing I want to highlight that I think is important, because some people in the audience might have a goal to guest contribute content in whatever their industry is. And you said something very important, which was that sometimes you like writers for the alternative point of view or a different outlook on something. And I think a lot of people make the mistake sometimes of trying to conform or trying to be like the other writers. But I think what you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a value add to have a different outlook. Obviously be constructive with it, not just be attacking or controversial for the sake of it. But would you agree that can provide value to a site to kind of have a balanced discussion and an alternative point of view?
Oh, definitely. Like I recently had a writer come to me and said, oh, I have this story idea. This is what I want to do. I know it's not the popular opinion, but I think this is really a big problem, and I think we need to have someone talking about it. And I said, not a problem. And my only rule on that kind of thing is you can rant all you want, but it has to be fair and you have to back up your rant. You just can't say, let's just use the example, Google is evil, because people use that expression all the time. And I'm like, okay, well, for this example, if you want to say Google is evil, okay, but you can't just say Google is evil and rant. You have to back up why you think Google is evil and why this is an issue. I don't want people just to be up on their soapbox. They have to be up there for a legitimate reason and give enough points and enough background and enough reasons that people will think, oh, okay, that's a really good argument. I don't want people thinking, oh, there's that person ranting again. And so I think that's a big reason why a lot of those columns do so well, because even if they're presenting it from one standpoint and not necessarily the other, they still back up all the reasons why it's a problem and an issue and why people should be looking into it.
That's a very important point. So what are some mistakes that you see people make when they pitch you for wanting to write? Because maybe other listeners out there can avoid making these same mistakes. Like, what are some things that people are saying or doing that are not grabbing your attention?
So I do have people, there is a link to, if you're interested in contributing, right on the SEM Post. So people can go and say, I have this either idea or I'm interested in doing this. But I mean, I can look at them from a mile away and I can see who are just doing it for the link. And it usually starts, I'm interested in doing a guest blog post. Don't use those words, especially when on the website I talk about being a contributor. And so those are kind of the things that draw a warning flag. I love it when people include their bio and their background and their Twitter handle. So even if it's someone that I might not be familiar with personally, I can look at their Twitter handle, I can look and see who they're engaging with, who engages with them, the kind of things they're saying on Twitter, and to get an idea of how experienced they are or how much interesting things they have to say. And the same with including links to where they've been published previously. Like if they've just been published on Jim Joe's blog, that's not going to hold as much weight as if they say, oh, I've been published on, this industry publication and this one, or even I've been quoted in this publication.
Yeah, I like that. Jim Joe. I know Jim Joe. So I think that's important. So just to sum that up, including a bio or background, a link to prior publications, prior things you've written, and to social media profiles, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is. That's all helpful to you as an editor, because now you don't have to figure out who they are from their email address or their email signature, and it saves you some of the work.
Exactly.
It's showing that they're putting an extra effort to make your job easier. And
exactly.
I want to shift gears a little bit again to conference events and speaking. And this is something you've mentioned that you've done a lot throughout your career. Would you say it's a requirement for people in the digital marketing space to go out in person and be attending events?
So if you have the ability to go out and attend events, it's a really good thing if you can. If you can swing it, or if your company wants to send you, and there's lots of regional events. You don't have to go to, SMX Advanced or PubCon or, one of these major, countrywide or even worldwide events. You can start off with a lot of the regional events, like State of Search in Dallas. They do a conference just for the local Dallas community, but it brings in speakers from all over the world. Like I went and spoke at it last year. Gary from Google did, and there was just a ton of speakers who went there. Same with Portland, Oregon has their event. I think it's this week. Mm-hmm. Again, same thing. They have a whole range of world-class speakers going, but it's targeted more to the regional area. So even if you can't make it to or afford the expense of going to one of the major ones, look and see what regional ones there are in your area that you can kind of dip your toes into. If you can't go, obviously people share presentations on SlideShare. I find they're not very intuitive unless you've actually been to the event. Some people are more wordy on their presentations, which I tend to do simply for when people go back and review it. But others, not so much. They go and they're looking at You're basically there's PowerPoint decks where you see, slides with 10 pictures and that's it. And you're not going to get a lot of information from that. Another way you're going to get information is from live tweeting. When I go to search events, I do a ton of live tweeting, and I'm probably one of the most active ones at the various conferences I go to, live tweeting what speakers are saying, little tidbits, tips. And I try everything I tweet, it tries to be something that's either really interesting or actionable. Mm-hmm. But again, if you're following me along on Twitter because I'm at a conference, you're only going to get the sessions I am physically at. So I might be doing the SEO track one day and the PPC track the other day, but it doesn't guarantee that I'm going to be going to the one session that you'd be really interested in.
I find live tweeting, you can catch little bits here and there, but it's not the complete picture.
Yeah, it's never going to be the same as being at a conference, but it will give you a little bit of insight if it happens to be the sessions you're interested in.
Exactly. Now, what about for a non-SEO or non-marketer, somebody that's a business owner or the CEO or an entrepreneur? Should they attend specifically SEO events? Like, are they welcome at those? Will they learn things?
Oh, definitely. There's a lot of sessions that, are going to be really helpful for big brands. Like there's tons of sessions just on content creation, for example. There's always a lot of sessions on local SEO and local presence for local businesses. That's a really huge thing. So even individual businesses will get a huge amount of information from going to the local track one day and then the SEO track the next day. And also a lot of conferences, if you just want to whip in and whip out, you can just buy a pass for a single day. You don't have to have the expense of buying an entire day. So if you look at a conference that's a 3-day conference, for example, that's just too cost prohibitive for you to go all 3 days, look and see the price for the pass that might have a day of all sessions you're interested in. So that's something else to consider as well.
Exactly. And I think just for the show notes, when we make those, just a little live reminder that we're going to link to, I believe there's a few resources that list out all of the industry conferences, and we will link to that in the show notes. I have one last sort of fun question for you, and that is, if a Disney character was used as the face of a Google update or penalty, because I know you're a big Disney fan, what character would it be, and what would the update penalty be about?
So I was thinking about this, and it's kind of one of those things where you're going to have, anytime Google updates their algo, there's going to be people that absolutely are ecstatic because they've gone up, but there's going to be equally a number of people who have gone down in the search results because they're the losers. So whenever you have people losing pages, you're going to have people getting pages. So I was thinking it would almost be interesting to have like a pairing of like Ariel versus Ursula or something, because there's always going to be winners and losers. It's just the losers tend to be the ones that are most vocal and are, tweeting about it and complaining about it and going after John Mueller and Gary about why their site has suddenly lost rankings when they shouldn't have. So it's definitely this contrast thing, because there are people that love anytime Google does something, and there's equally people that hate it. So I think it would be the hero or the heroine versus the villain of any Disney movie would fit in this kind of scenario.
That's a really good answer, because I think you're right. I think there's kind of the vocal minority where you hear so many people complaining in the forums, but that's like less than 1% of the people that are actually affected by it. So I love that answer. That's great. So Jen, this has been fantastic getting to meet you and have you on the show. I greatly appreciate it. I guess, is there any last parting words of wisdom or insights or tips that you'd like to sign off with before we finish the show?
I think just keep creating quality content and keep looking on how you can continue to improve your site. You should, even if you think your site is the best, and even if Google is giving you top rankings, always look to see how you can do it better, because there's always going to be someone coming up behind you who's going to try to beat you. So it's kind of easy to sit on your laurels and be like, oh, well, I'm number one, I don't need to do anything else. But, you got to keep increasing your quality and increasing your content and increasing the value to the users, because at the end of the day, Google cares about the value your site gives to users and not the value your site gives to search engines.
I love that. We're going to end right on that. That is an excellent quote for the end. And next week, we're going to have, I think, somebody you recommended, Shaw Menz, if I'm saying her name correctly.
Oh, yay.
Yeah,
Yes.
for episode 7. So we're going to record her. I'm actually recording her interview in about 10 minutes. So don't tell anyone, though, because they're posting on separate days. But Jen, last question. Is there any other place besides the SEM Post people can find you online?
I'm very active on Twitter at JenStar. I do post on Google Plus, believe it or not. I'm also on Facebook, either under my personal account or under the SEM Post account. Those are kind of the main places I'm active. I'm also a bit active on the Google Webmaster Help forums as well.
Excellent. And the star, JenStar, where did that come from?
So, believe it or not, way back when I first signed up for Webmaster World, I wanted to be Jen. And Brett had the rule that their username had to be like 5 characters or more. So I'm like, oh, I'm not a Jenny. I'm definitely not a Jenny. And Jen with a bunch of N's kind of didn't look right. And at the time, me and a bunch of friends, we had this sarcastic thing going where it would always be like, oh, you're such a star. And that is just, I couldn't think of anything else. And that is where the star came from.
And that's great. And that's carried into your newer social profiles, Twitter and Skype and everything.
Yes.
That is funny. I was always curious about that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This was really informative. I know that my listeners are going to love the information that you shared with us. And definitely stick around for the next episode of Experts on the Wire, episode 7, with Shaw Menz talking all about links, link penalties, and things like that. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.